Hello, Dr. Ron Eglin, and today we're going to talk about testing your code. And this is something that most programmers hate to do, but let's talk a little bit about it and let's make it a little bit less painful. Well, first thing is that I see a lot of people that their concept of testing is, well, they create classes and interfaces and forms, and they go in and their testing is they go in over and over again and they make a change and they go back, they run the project, they put in numbers, they test those numbers, they put in stuff, and they see that's their concept of testing. Well, let's talk a little bit about unit testing. Let's automate some of this testing. Well, the first thing about unit testing is let's look at a project we have right here. This is a project, and I want to create some automated testing for this project. We already know, when we look at the menu up here, in Visual Studio, this is Visual Studio 2012, there's a menu option called Test. Okay, well, we got to know how to use that. So here's part of testing. In this, I've got a solution. The solution contains a project. Let's create the ability to do testing. Well, this is relatively easy to do. If I go over to File here, New, and say Project, I will find that underneath my templates, in this case I'm using C#, I've got a template called Test, which says Unit Test Project. So if I go ahead and create a unit test project, which I've already done, so I'm not going to do it, what it's going to do is it's going to add to my solution another project. Now, I always name it so that I know that it's a test project. And it's a project specifically designed to be able to do testing. So let's go over here to, it's going to create a class called, and the default class will be Unit Test 1 if it's named Unit Test 1. And inside of this class file, I can have classes. Now notice that in here I've got this declarative of test class and test method. Okay, well, you're defining that this class is for testing, and you're defining that this method within the class is also for testing, which is going to be kind of nice, as we're going to see in a few minutes. Also, what's the beauty of this is that you can create documentation of how to use your classes in here within the testing, which is really a nice thing to be able to do. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I've got over here in my project, I've got this thing called math routines, and in the math routines I've got some sorting routines. I've got a quick sort that's designed to do integers and a quick sort that's designed to do iComparables. Now, one thing to note is that numbers do not have a common interface of iComparable. There's a lot of reasons for that. You can go into the logic of why it goes on. There's all sorts of debates on the net that you can read about why they do and why they don't. But the truth of the matter is they don't have a common interface like strings do. Strings actually follow the interface iComparable. So strings are going to be able to use that. So any type of string is going to be able to use right there. Characters the same way. Well, let's go over back to our test class here. I've created this method called test method 1. I could call it test method quick sort because I want to test my quick sort routines. Okay, and that would actually be a logical thing to do, is to call it quick sort. And to test it, I'm going to create a string that's an unsorted array of strings. Okay, and I'm going to call the routine math routines quick sort. Now remember, to do that, I have to make sure that my namespace has a using here. So I do have to go back to my math routines and make sure that's a net namespace. So in my unit test, I've got this using up here above my unit testing. And then I've got this ability to assert R equal or R equal, and to see, hey, is the result that I'm getting when I do the sorting what I expected? So I would expect array element 0 to be an A and array element 6 to be a Z, because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 elements in the array. And knowing that arrays are numbered from 0 to 6, element 6, index 6 should be Z. Okay, well, I've got two things here. One is I've got a piece of code that can test my quick sort, but I've also got a piece of code here that can show me how to use my quick sort, okay, which is kind of nice here. It's actually a little bit of documentation. So my test method quick sort shows, hey, I can do this. Now, what happens if I can go up here to the now and say test, run. This is the only test I have right now, so if I say run all tests, it's going to go ahead and build. It's going to run the tests, and notice that it passed. Now let's see what happens if it doesn't pass. This is going to make the assertion kind of illogical, but let's say you want to assert that it's T, and I now go test run all tests. Okay, now it's going to come back with the red X over here, and one of the tests failed. Well, it failed because my test case was not correct, but that's okay. Now, I've got a second quicksort routine. Let's say I want to test that one here. Well, what I can do is I can create another. So now I'm going to create an integer array called unsortInt. And now I'm going to do the same thing here. And I know that in this case it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So element 5 should be the highest number in there, should be 7. And element 0 there. So now let's go ahead and save this. Let's go ahead and run all tests again. Okay, and I know that everything passed. Well, the beauty of this is, if you're working on your code and you know how a specific method is supposed to work, and you know what things it's supposed to work for, you can create a test class, okay, and a test method to test those. They can serve as a type of documentation of actually how these different methods work within there. And it's always a good idea to make your classes actually have a logical name, so that you can say, hey, this class goes with this method goes with this method, class goes with this class, and I've got this ability to do these testing routines for them. And you can do a lot more than just this type of testing. The test classes and methods can test things going into and out of the database, so you can do all sorts of stuff. And the beauty of this is I don't have to sit here and run it, go back out, put in the numbers, make sure everything works, come back over. Okay, it's right then and there. You know when it works, and that's one of the beauties of this. I can also go into a lot more detail if I said, I want to know that every single number or letter in this unsorted method actually ended up in the right place. Well, that's very easy to do because all I have to do is add an assertion for each of those. So I would expect array element 1, not array element 0 as being A, element 1 to be equal to the C. So I simply put that in there. I add another assertion to say, hey, did that element end up in the right spot? Save it, test, run, and see how fast that is to do. Okay, now something failed. Well, it failed because I wrote the test case wrong. Okay, I go back in, put the 1 in there, save. Okay, I run test, run all tests. Now it passed. Now if I go back and I make changes to my code, I can just simply say, hey, did I break anything? If I did, I just go tests, all tests, and I know exactly, I can nail in exactly where I broke something, which is a very nice thing to be able to do. Unit testing is extremely powerful. It's something that you should do with any professional product or anything that you're doing on the professional level. I'm just showing you the built-in test capabilities of Visual Studio, but there's lots of other types of test suites out there that you can use. And hopefully this will get you started with good coding practices and the ability to add unit tests by just breaking you past that learning curve of how do you put this stuff together. Thank you very much, and again, good programming.